As a former entrepreneurial woman and a business owner, I can attest how challenging the journey has been, because the aspect of business administration continues to be our weakest link in education. And we just do not have enough time in our curriculum to learn about all the intricacies about handling a business. A lot of us wanted to have our own practice, and the dental skills were not questioning, but we were very weak on managing a business and how to market ourselves. So through the 30 years of practice, it was pretty much a continuous learning experience and finding the resources how to improve on that aspect on my professional life. So we have a great opportunity now with Dr. Koch to talk to us about the entrepreneurial women doctor. And it's not only geared towards women, because as professional women, we have to get into professional relationships with men. And it's not the thing about women are for Venus and men are for Mars. It is a journey that we all take at one point of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, welcome back. Okay. This is one of my favorite presentations to give. And let me tell you what it was originally called. I was giving, it's on. Can you people hear me in the back of the room? Huh? Okay, maybe we can have a little bit louder on the volume. Let me see. I don't think a little bit more on the volume. My voice projects, and as you saw, in fact, you evidence I was able to kill the lavalier. All right. So I did talk it to death. Is that better in the back? Yes. Right? Good. We're good to go. Thank you so much. I first gave this presentation at Harvard Medical School, and I had it entitled The Entrepreneurial Female Doctor. And actually, they contacted me 3 days before the lecture, and they said, excuse me, would you mind changing the name, the title, from female doctor to woman doctor? At that time, Wellesley College, which is right outside of Boston, was having a big issue about the term female versus the term woman. Female is sexual, woman is more gender related. So I said, fine, whatever you want. So this program was initially created really for XX individuals, because having had the unique opportunity to be on both sides of a negotiating table as an XY guy and as a transsexual woman, as Bertha said, it is Mars and Venus. It's dramatically different. The way I was seen, the way I was incorporated or not incorporated into discussions was stunning to me. So what I realized was like, wait a second, I have a pretty unique perspective here. I've created a lot of products. I've spent a lot of time on the corporate side of things in dentistry as well as the clinical side. Let me share my input, my perspective. So that's what this is about, but it actually, I'll talk about issues that apply to everybody regardless of your gender. So this is one of the things for me. I don't see patients anymore actively, but I saw more than 32,000 patients in my career. And the only time I really see patients is when I'm with the Penn residents or if I go overseas. This was 2 years ago. I spent 2.5 weeks in China at stomatology. That's what they call in the hospitals, doing microsurgical courses. The difference is that I don't take an honorarium for that. That goes back to the endodontic department at Penn. And I'm happy to say that the endodontic department at Penn is totally subsidiary. We basically sponsor ourselves. We have about $800,000 that we've all generated from going around the world lecturing, and the money goes back to the endo department, so we don't take any money from any corporate sponsors. So when we do research, it's totally clean research. So I'm very proud to do that, and I had a great time in China doing these type of courses. This is me at a medical school. Interesting enough, this was the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. And, you know, I'm basically talking probably something in the transgender medicine world. But let me talk about a little bit about my story. One of the things I did, I was in the service for 10 years. And what most people don't realize was that in the service and then out of it for 14 years, I did prosthodontics. And as I talk about a little bit later on in my own personal narrative, I came to a point in 1991 where I wanted to go back and study endodontics. Even doing pros and being chief of prosthodontics at multiple Air Force bases, I did a lot of root canal therapy. And for me, what I wanted to have people understand is that when I went back to endodontic school, I was appalled at how they were destroying teeth. There are too many endodontists who never cut a crown prep in their life. And they were, I don't care about the crown. I care about the coronal third of the root and the ferrule effect. That's the key to the long-term retention of endodontically treated teeth. So when I went back and I'm seeing these people just kill these teeth, I said to them, if you ever sent me a case like that as me as a prosthodontist and you were the endodontist, I'd go crazy. You can't do that. You're really making my life hard restoring this tooth. I also realized at that point that it's not separate entities. We don't have endodontics and prosthodontics. We have an endo-restorative continuum. What I mean by that is that if someone's placing a post in a tooth, and I know we're all trying to get away from posts, but if someone is placing a post in the tooth, we are in the exact same space as the person who did the root canal. So there is an intimate relationship. So it truly is an endo-restorative continuum. So what happened is I started coming out and I was doing the things up at Harvard. I was creating all kinds of new techniques and all kinds of different protocols. So as I started to merge this together, there comes a point where, you know, you have to leave. So what I did is I was offered a position as a director with Dentsply. So I went out to Oklahoma, and that was a bit of a culture shock for me. And I went out to Oklahoma, and I created this huge education thing in endodontics. I had a great experience. I had an enormous budget. I could do what I wanted to do. We started a program in schools where we would give the schools the engines free if they restricted their files to only our files at wholesale prices. So when I left Tulsa to create my own company, we had 94% of the market share for North America. What Tulsa was for me, Tulsa was my MBA. What I did is when I went out there, I had a lot of leverage. I was recruited to replace Ben Johnson, not as the chairman, they had sold the company, but as being the lead endodontist. And so I was the director and I could make all these different things happen. I went out with sales guys. I had no idea how difficult that was selling something. I had been the expert at the time for the biggest lawsuit in dentistry for Dentsply on rotary file design. So I knew the litigation. I knew the research part. I knew the clinical part. I even went to OEMs. So I took a completely Japanese approach to my time at Dentsply. I wanted to learn everybody's job. What are the challenges for you? What are the challenges for you? What are you trying to accomplish? Where is the bottleneck here in the continuity of care? I then formed Real World Endo. So Real World Endo for me was initially doing cruise ship CE courses. I would do a CE course in endodontics on a cruise ship out of Vancouver up to Alaska, or I do it out of Fort Lauderdale down to the Southern Caribbean. So that was fun for me. But when I made the decision to leave Dentsply and create my own company full time, not just making it a part-time thing, I had to up my busyness. So I started doing a lot of lectures all over the place, but then I started to get into product development. And I have no idea how to make a restaurant quality rib roast. I have no clue. I know how to do shellfish and fish, but I have no idea how to cook a good rib roast, but I do know how to create medical and dental products, okay? So what happened, I started creating a whole bunch of medical and dental products. And then along the way, I learned this whole game of working with attorneys. I knew working with attorneys in terms of patent attorneys and intellectual property attorneys from Dentsply. These were amazing people. Patent attorneys and intellectual properties attorneys are like engineers or chemists for 11 years. Then they go back to law school. And what's so amazing, I'm coming in with a rotary file design. The next person has a bicycle tire. And they have to be able to talk intelligently how you work through that morass that is the bureaucracy of patents. So I got all this experience, and I'm going to share with you what I learned from that, and including a startup that I created about a year ago as a Delaware C Corp called Flossy. So this is kind of where I'm taking this up to you to start this whole discussion. So Real World Endo ended up being, at one point, it was the largest CE company in the world. I'm very proud about that. We had 32 specialists lecturing all around the world, and it became a really, really significant company. One of the first products I changed, one of my first product ideas was gutta percha. And this is the way you have to think. I had gone over to London, and I was doing a lecture at Gee's, and I was doing a hands-on. And there's a big company over in the UK called QED, Quality Endodontic Distributors. So during the hands-on, they said to me, they said, you know, listen, Dr. Koch, do you mind if you use our house brand gutta percha? I said, I personally don't care whose gutta percha you have, I'll use it. So I used their private label gutta percha, and it was amazing. So I said, who's making this for you? So they said, well, a company up in Vancouver, Canada. So when I came back, what I decided to do is I went up to the company in Vancouver, Canada. And what I said to them was, I said, here's what I want to do. I love the fit of your gutta percha, but I want to make it stiffer. Can I change the molecular weight of gutta percha, and will that make it stiffer? They said, yeah, no problem. So what I ended up doing was I ended up creating a line of gutta percha called Galaxy, where I increased the molecular weight and made it stiffer. Now, why did I make it stiffer? Because it's much easier to handle. What I used to have with my residents, especially on really gnarly California term, right? Gnarly curved canals, what I would do is I would take endo ice and I would spray it on the comb, and I could pre-curve it, and it would go easy peasy around the nastiest of curvatures. So I said, well, can I make the gutta percha stiffer so it doesn't collapse? Furthermore, as you'll find out with the endodontic lecture, I knew endodontics was going to go to sealer-based technology. Because what creates the seal in a root canal is not gutta percha, that just takes up space. What creates the seal is sealer. That's why they don't call it not sealer. So I wanted to have gutta percha that was going to be not only easy to work with, but was going to act as a delivery device to deliver sealer into the root canal. So that became Galaxy Gutta Percha, and we started selling it originally up in Canada, and next thing you know, it really took off. Then what happened was that Brasler approached my partner and I brought in a partner. Because once I started getting into products, I realized I need somebody, I don't need anybody to create new products. I don't need, at the time, another Ken Koch. One is more than enough to handle, okay? I needed somebody who knew contracts, somebody who would make sure that we never paid full price. So I brought in a partner. His job was on the contracts. I'll take care of the IP. So we were doing some stuff for a year. We were doing a bunch of articles. I created my whole company by saturation bombing with articles. And we were approached by Brasler about creating a relationship where they would be able to sell exclusively on intellectual property. So basically, we became half owners of this whole endodontic division, which we were now in charge of creating. So we created a line of instruments called EndoSequence that for a number of years was the #1 selling endo rotary file in the country. And it became a big deal. Oh, going backwards here, I guess. My motto always was just the facts, nothing but the facts. Okay? I ran with that for many, many years. I still get royalties from that. But that was a company that was formed basically in the typical way, where you incorporate yourselves, you're an LLC. What I like to do is, you know, I like to have a product created, and I like to have a company then handle it and sell it. Now, one of the things you have to understand here as a young person, you have to protect your intellectual property. And one of the things I realize is that young people don't know anything about this, physicians or dentists. If you have an idea and you want to discuss it with somebody, you have to have an NDA. Does anybody know what an NDA is? It's a non-disclosure agreement, okay? Now, you can get them off the internet. If you have a brother who's an attorney or a sister who's an attorney, they can help you. It's pretty much boilerplate. But what you need to do is you need to protect yourself with your idea before you speak with anybody. So when you're working with a major company and you're bringing them an idea, you're going to try to speak with the marketing director, not salesmen. Salesmen don't have the authority to have a conversation with you. But what you have to do is before you have that conversation with the marketing director, you have to make sure that they're okay with you giving them an NDA. Most marketing people will not have a problem with that as long as it's a reasonable NDA. And I will talk a little bit later here about how when you start to get an interest from a company, how you start to build that working with them to protect your interests in a royalty-bearing situation. Flossy, which is the company that I created fairly recently last year, this is different. This is a startup. And a little bit later, I'm going to talk about how you put together a startup. What's the difference between friends and family and angel investors? What's the difference between an angel investor and a first seed round versus a second seed round? Okay? We all hear now about startups. There's a lot of startup money out there available. Most startups, of course, fail, but you're not on the hook personally like you are with other endeavors. So I'm going to talk about startups a little bit later here in this program. So this was Nick. This is one of my partners, actually my partner with the startup. He's a business guy, and he understands the world of fashion and stuff. And this is Nick and I. Another thing I did in terms of this startup is that when you're creating companies, I want you to start thinking of dentistry, not just in dentistry, of other applications. I've done a lot of work with veterinary medicine, with veterinary dentists. So one of the things I've done with Flossy is I created a division called Bark Fresh. And what Bark Fresh is, it's oral hygiene products for animals, okay? And so one of the people I've worked with on this is a great friend of mine. This is Mary Bilo. And Dr. Bilo is a veterinary dentist, which is a 3-year specialty after vet school, okay? And it's amazing how much they know about dentistry. When I first met Mary, she professed to me her love for endodontics. And she said, no, I think I really know a lot about endodontics. So I said to her, and kind of jokingly, I said, well, I'll be the judge of that. And so we went to a coffee shop, and I gave her an oral exam, okay? So over a cappuccino, I'm asking Mary like bizarro questions. She's got all the answers. She knocked it out of the park. So I realized, oh my goodness, you really do love endodontics. This is going to be fun. So we started doing a lot of things at Penn Vet School. And then take a look at this. Now, this is me. This is me with a couple of obviously less than super interested vet residents, okay? But this is Noodles, okay? So if you think Noodles is a rescue guide, if you think Noodles here is just posting that Noodles is not serious, think again. This is Noodles getting ready to go in, okay? Scrubbed in, okay? So that's Nudes, okay? That's Mary's dog, and Noodles is great. So not only we were doing endodontics on all kinds of dogs, but all kinds of cats, including really big cats, okay? I've got a quick question since I'm amongst fellow kind. I'm amongst dentists. This was the maxillary right canine on this lioness. One thing that's really cute was outside this room, she had 3 young baby lions, and they were all males. They looked like collies. They were all about 75, 80 pounds with this little mane, and they were all outside. This was an upper right canine. How long do you think the canine was? Give me a guess. Got 30 millimeters? Got a 45 millimeters, got a 45 millimeters. Somebody give me a 55, got a 65. 106 millimeters, okay? And you know what the crazy thing was? They were short by a 0.5 millimeter. That's an endodontic joke for the endodontists. All right. So anyway, this is Mary and me with Nudes. And what we were doing there, we were developing hygiene things. Silicone, this is a Rottweiler that just came in when we were there. So I said, Mary, Mary's amazing with the animals. The way she handles and grabs them. And she was brushing the teeth with the silicone brush. That works really good. We also were looking at electric toothbrushes and sonics for animals. And so look how nice and clean that guy looks. He's ready to rock and roll. You can see right here, these are prototypes. When you're developing products, you're going to be getting prototypes. And the prototypes are really important because you really, really can't take a product forward until you really exhaustively have worked with it. And one of the things you want to do, these are all endodontic doggy files. So they're all 50 millimeters in length. And we have different grinds on them and different things like that. My goal is to try to break them because I want to see what's going to be the cyclic fatigue point, how much torque can they withstand. So there's a lot of work that goes into product development. So you can see Mary here with the RBG. You can actually see there's a cone fit on a canine there. And that was on a, I hate to say it, but you end up using canine heads when you're working on this in terms of doing research. So that's two of us. This is Mary's new facility in Virginia. She's got a big animal hospital. And what's really fun about this is that you can see in the back with the anesthesia, I mean, the vets are great. They do everything. You know, so Mary's doing, you know, oral surgery on one dog. Next dog, she's doing a root canal. Next dog, she's taking out the gallbladder or something. So it's really pretty amazing how vets run their practices. All right, so can this be done? And I'm especially talking here to women because when I transitioned gender, there was a group that really assiduously worked against me. It was more really orchestrated by some ex-business associates, and they saw it as an opportunity to try to crush me and make money. I'm here to tell you, they very seriously miscalculated my personality, okay? I'm not that easy to bury. And so one of the things that happened is that I could have filed lawsuits, and I would have won lawsuits, especially in Massachusetts, but the attorneys couldn't believe it because they decided not to do that. Okay, I get a couple of bucks, but what do I have? This is my career. This is my passion. This is what I've been doing here now for more than 40 years. So I'm not going to just simply take a check and go away. What I'm going to do is reestablish myself. And of course, I talk about trans issues because somebody has to have an honest conversation. But my real passion is fronting for professional women. I've become a mentor for a lot of young women, 34 to 41 years old, especially on the medical side. I love it. They all call me Auntie, which I love. And I said, that's great, Auntie Annie, as long as you don't confuse me with the pretzel. So can you as a woman, and the men here in the audience know they can do this. The percentage of women in dental schools is going to be close to 70% in 2 to 3 years. Percentage of women in DSOs right now in terms of healthcare providers is approximately 60% and getting higher. Medical schools is about 56% of medical students are women. That's increasing. And as more women come into medicine and veterinary medicine, but especially medicine, you're going to see this whole concept that you embrace here at Weston, this concept of a One Health concept coming closer together. To me, dentistry should be part of primary care, okay? And there's a huge overlap, not just with periodontal disease and other things, but just the whole treatment aspects. In the past, I can say this because I was one of these people, I think there are older white guys who are threatened by dentists coming in and encroaching upon the medical thing. That's gone away as we have more female practitioners, both in medicine and dentistry. So the One Health concept, and it's being encouraged and fostered also by stuff that's going on here in Weston, this is where this goes. And One Health is going to be medicine, dentistry, and veterinary medicine. So that's what Flossie is about for me with Barkfresh. It's not just about products, it's about bringing this concept of a One Health concept to veterinary medicine, dental medicine, and general medicine. So what are we going to do here, especially as a woman? A couple of the things. First of all is the social environment. I am on the board of overseers at Penn, and I'm very honored to be on that. One of the good things about stepping up and getting on a board like that is that I can have a conversation with anybody in the university, okay? But the only person who's tough is the president. But I had a conversation with the vice president 2 years ago for lunch. So I know this lady, Leslie, from the board, and she said, Annie, what's up? What's the problem? I said, It's misogyny. She goes, what? I said, it's misogyny. I said, misogyny is worse now in medical schools, dental schools, and veterinary schools than it was in 1977. She said, you're kidding. I said, I'm not kidding. That's why I'm having lunch with you, okay? So she said, well, what do you think the cause is? And then this is just an honest answer. It's foreign men. What I mean by that is that there are a lot of men who are coming from cultures where homophobia, transphobia, misogyny is not only tolerated, it's promoted. That doesn't work in this country, okay? So for me, you know, I'm seeing some people as directors of programs. I see people in the civilian sector as senior partners, and they're taking an attitude towards women that's not right. They're using the women's desire to have a family as leverage against them. They're pushing women into situations where they're not being paid equally, they're not getting the benefits, and they're being leveraged as associates. So that's a social environment. That's changing. American guys, whatever the ethnic background is, they get the message. They're doing much better. The other thing too is as women, you have to be smart. If it is Dr. Cohen who's been coming to school once a week for 75 years, and he says something a little inappropriate, you don't hang him from the yardarm. You have a conversation on the side with him. You know, listen, Bert, you can't do this. The things have changed. If he continues to do it, then you have a retirement party, right? Okay. I'm just being smart. I'm just giving you the truth, right? You have a retirement party. Thank you so much for your service, and you know, have a great time, okay? But that's a very different animal than somebody who's 44 years old, okay, with an attitude. So this is a little bit of the social environment as a woman that you have to deal with. Millennials, right? Millennials, the guys, I understand it. I love this concept of having the experience. I understand that. I've been all over the world. I like that. I like the idea of trying to do things with quality. I'm on board with that. But what happens sometimes is you have to work, okay? All right? I mean, I hate to break it, like, you know, J-O-B, you know? It's like, you know, I mean, so, you know, that's a thing here, that's an environment. So for you, coming here as millennials in medical school and dental school, you've gotten the memo that, you know, I need to kind of buckle down and stick to the program here for a while. So that's going to put you in a bit of an advantage because you know what it's like to actually buckle down, and you just can't go to Mexico for 2 weeks on a whim. You've got to get certain patients treated and taken care of. And then funding, dentistry, and I'm going to limit this to dentistry, has changed dramatically. The biggest change has been totally generated by the obscene tuition costs of dental school. My God, the University of Pennsylvania tuition now fees is $86,000 a year. So if you went to Penn as an undergraduate, you went to Penn Dental School, then you went to specialty and endo-apparel, you're looking at $700K. So what happens when you're in debt for $700,000, okay? Well, you're gonna have a tough time buying anybody's practice. So what's happening now, what I see across the country, you've got Dr. Kim, and Dr. Kim's got a practice, he's worked for 35 years, he thinks his practice is valued at, let's say, $800,000. He's got nobody who can buy it. So what happens, the DSO comes along and says, hey, listen, you know, Dr. Kim, you got a nice practice. Here's what we'll offer you. We'll offer you $375 and a percentage equity. Done. Boom. Have a nice life. Okay? Because that's what we currently have. Also, in terms of this indebtedness, and people are trying to do a cost-benefit analysis of whether it's worth it, we are seeing more women increasingly coming into dental schools. Women historically in dentistry have been seen as not necessarily full 5 days a week. And honestly, many women, unlike men, have an interest in having a life, okay? And having a family. That's why for me, and I'm very prejudiced with this, I think endodontics is a fabulous specialty for women. And that includes both medicine and dentistry. Because a woman can work in endodontics for 2.5, 3 days a week, do very well financially, feel completely sated about her educational things, and still have a life. So these are different things in the dentistry that we're going to understand. But funding for any new project is always going to be a critical thing. As I said to you before, if you're going to start a program in a school, if you're going to start a company out of your kitchen or out of your garage, and that's where they start. I started Real World Endo out of my kitchen. And I made the globe, this cheesy globe, right? Because Real World, Just the Facts. I stole that from Dragnet, Just the Facts, Nothing But the Facts. That's where I took that. And my spouse at the time laughed at me, and there was a guy at a local dental company, big dental company in Orange, California, made a couple of snide remarks about my globe. Once they passed $45 million a year, they weren't laughing so much, okay? So that's how that works. But the point of the matter here is you have to have infrastructure. That's pretty easy to put together. Everybody here, if you're sitting in this room and you have the capability to be here, male or female, you have the ability to put together a team. And you have the ability to put together infrastructure. What is a huge challenge is the funding, okay? And so the funding, whether it's a program in the school, whether it's a medical school or dental school, whether it's you initiating your business, where am I going to get the funding? And that's going to be a key thing. It's not just friends and family. It's how can you get the funding to start this project? Or how can I do this in a way that I don't have to necessarily have a lot of money in the beginning? I'm going to share with you in a bit how you can do this without breaking the bank. So, how did I do this? And what's the story here with this? This gets into the part that's really interesting to me, because men and women are different. And there's nobody in this room can talk about that from the perspective I can, right? And for instance, I'll give you one of the examples is that after I had transitioned gender completely, it was around 12:30 at night in Boston, and I'm walking down the street and some guy came around the corner behind me. And all of a sudden I hear his footsteps. That's a totally different experience for me as a woman as compared to a guy. So for 63 years, that was a total non-event, somebody coming behind me. But now as a 64-year-old woman at that point, all of a sudden, like, what's the intentions here? How fast are they working? Are they behaving? Women have a seasoned vigilance that men don't. And unfortunately, the seasoned vigilance begins sociologically with women at a very young age. I'm not turning around looking at the guy like in a horror movie, but I'm looking in the side windows like, is this guy getting closer? Is he doing anything? That was a very dramatic moment for me, realizing the differences, among other things, with men and women. But one of the things I found out when I transitioned gender, one of the great things is a girls' night out, okay? A GNO. And men, you can't bother your girlfriend or your wife and go visit her when she's having a GNO. One guy contaminates the entire evening, right, ladies? Right, ruins it, okay? Absolutely. So don't bother your girlfriend at the GNO. Watch ESPN, okay? So, but one of the things that women do sit around chortling about, all women know that men can't multitask, right? You give a guy a remote control, a beer, ESPN, they're sated, right? They're sated. But what women don't realize, there's something that men do really, really well. And men know how to prioritize. Because ladies, let me tell you what the game is. When you give a guy 4 or 5 things to do, tasks, this is what they do. They immediately do a calculus. And the calculus is, how is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect my image? How is this going to affect me financially going forward? What is the best way for me to do this? What they then quickly do is they make a decision to concentrate on one thing, and they totally jettison the other 3 or 4 things, okay? Women don't do that. They try to do every little thing, and they screw it up at times. But every CEO woman I know, outside of dentistry and medicine, every CEO woman I know thinks that way just like a guy. Can't get to it, I'll get to it if I can get to it. I'm concentrating on this. So you have to understand that ability to prioritize is a key if you're going to create an entrepreneurial venture or some kind of business, okay? Men really know how to prioritize. There's a second thing. Women don't know how to market themselves, okay? Men not only know how to market themselves, men know how to basically promote themselves. In fact, men are shameless about promoting themselves, okay? And for instance, if you have a corporate situation and there's a job opening, it's got 5 requirements. A guy's got 2 of the 5 requirements. He applies and he totally expects he's going to get the job. Women have 4.5 of the 5. They don't apply. Ladies, you can't do that. You've got to step up. You've got to be confident. Listen, I understand it from both sides of the table. You have to also understand when men sit at a table, and this is a negotiating table about a product design, about a technique, what we're going to do. Men immediately surmise and basically case up everybody at the table. Can I blow him away? Can I blow him away? Is he going to be difficult? Is that going to be trouble? And for women, it's not even a cognitive process. We just blow past women, okay? So for women at the table, you have to be able to stop that natural ability. And this ability of blowing past women, it's not a cognitive process. It's primacy associated with a Y chromosome, right? And guys have been taught that since they've been little boys. So if a woman's at the table, no problem blowing right past her. You got to think about Bob and Andy. That could be trouble. So you have to find a way to stop that from happening. Every woman I know is so worried that if they're too assertive, oh my God, I'm going to get called the B word, right? Everybody concerned about that. You can do this in ways that no one is going to think about you using the B term. There's a couple of things here for me. When you're at a table and you're competing against men, and I found myself, all of a sudden, I'm at the same table where 5 years ago, I was the player. Now I'm at the table, but there's 4 or 5 other men. I was really flattered by the fact that they treated me like a woman. I'm glad that they got to that point. But I was incredibly insulted that they treated me like a woman. Like this ability, like, you know, okay, you're done. What do you mean? Excuse me, tall blonde right here. I'm not done. Stop, hands up, you know, talk to the hand. All right, I'm not done. And now I can make it in a way that's joking, but they got the message is that you're not going to run right over me. The other thing that was astonishing to me, and I never saw this as a man, but again, it's not even a cognitive process. It's just the primacy with the Y chromosome, taking credit for things I created. And I was at a meeting a while ago, and I'm not going to mention names, 3 very famous endodontists, and there were 2 Chinese guys, had to do with bioceramics. I'm sitting at the table, and they are all talking, the 3 guys, like they created this. And they know me, they know whole background. And I'm watching them go on. I can't believe they have the goal, that's not the term I was thinking about. They have the goal to talk like this. I couldn't take it. I finally got to the point, I said, excuse me, wait a second. I said, I go like this, universal timeout. I said, I've got a question for the table. I said, anybody here who receives a royalty on any bioceramic product sold anywhere in the world, would you please raise your hand? Oh, I guess that's me. And you know what's so amazing? It didn't even stop them. It kind of pushed them back for like 3 minutes, but they were right back into the whole thing. So for me, having this thing like I'm being dismissed, who the hell are you to dismiss me? I'm not ready to be dismissed. I'll let you know when I'm dismissed. I can talk a lavalier to death. Remember that, right? And so for me, there's ways that you have to come. Another thing, please, ladies, when you go into this situation, come in prepared and professional. I know scrubs are comfortable. Don't show up in scrubs. Show up professionally, okay? Dress professionally. You know, everyone has got their own style, but dress professionally and have stuff with you. Don't just show up there with your purse. Have stuff, even if it's nonsense. Have it in front of you because it looks like you've prepared for the meeting. These are all the games. These are all the tricks. So much of this is about image. So much of this is about you having an image promoted that allows you to say your piece. Don't let yourself get intimidated or pushed to the side, okay? I know this is easy for me to say. It's a little different situation with my status. But as you go forward as professional women, and this is also for some men who are hesitant, okay? Not all men are really aggressive personalities. Some are also hesitant. You've got to find a way that's going to work that you can get your story out, okay? So let me talk to you about intellectual property. Physicians and dentists don't know from intellectual property. The key thing is that, you know, if you're going to create a product, what you have to do is you have to protect it. I mentioned you protect it with non-disclosure agreements if you're speaking to a marketing director. I want you to understand, if you have a serious idea, what a provisional patent is. Provisional patent is easy to get, and it gives you a year, but it gives you an early date on the patent. So if you have a new idea for an implant, or you have a new idea for a porcelain or some kind of thing, what you want to do is you want to do a couple of things. Get a provisional patent filed on it. It gives you a starting date if you ever get a full patent, and it gives you a year to send it around, because now you can say to people, you've got a product idea, patent pending. So it gives you protection. This is about protecting your intellectual property. I love trademarks. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about trademarks with Annie's axiom, so I'm going to hold off on that. But date and initial all documents. I know the men here have heard this. I don't know how many women. Have you ever heard the joke or the phrase, a bar napkin is a legal document? It is. If you have a date and a signature, it is. I know a guy who created a rotary file that a major company is selling, was created in a bar and had a bar napkin with a date and a signature. So when you're talking to people, document these things, put the date down, sign it, it'll protect you. And again, when you're speaking to companies, and I'll give you an example, SmearClear. This was back 2001, 2002. It was a company here in Orange, California, Cybro. So I went to them and I said, I want to create an enhanced EDTA product. So I took 17% ethylene diamine tetracetic acid, and I combined it with a very common surfactant. We use surfactants to reduce the wetting angle, reduce surface tension. Surfactants make detergents work better. And the surfactant I gave them was Centramid. We use Centramid a lot in research. And then I said, have one of your chemists come up with another surfactant, which they did, which is a very common surfactant, but it's proprietary information. And we developed SmearClear. And so what happened, SmearClear became very popular, conditioning the inside of the canal walls. But there was a study done a couple of years after that by Baylor that showed that SmearClear was much more antibacterial than MTAD or these other enhancement products by Dentsply. So a guy literally from Dentsply came up to me in Texas at the AAE meeting and kind of wanted to have an argument with me. And I said, I didn't do that research. You know, I created the product. You speak to the people at Baylor. And then the person kind of went on. And then for the only time in my life I ever gave this response, because I kind of got a little angry. I said, if you really knew what you were talking about, you would realize that Centramid is a potent antibacterial agent. Because what Baylor showed was that SmearClear was more antibacterial than these MTAD and this other product. But the difference was, I never claimed that on the 510K. When you create products, you have to have a document what you're claiming for. My claim on SmearClear was, it removes the smear layer. It removes the inorganic tissue, opens up the dental tubules. But if you actually knew what Centramid was, it's a potent antibacterial agent. So when you go through product development, you are also going to have to figure out, what are you going to limit this invention or this product to? So for me, I realized the bigger market to me was conditioning the inside of the canal walls that was going to lead into me with sealer-based obturation, bonded obturation, okay? But I didn't make a claim, even though it existed, about antibacterial. So that's one of the little tricks with 510Ks. Also, the more simple that you make a patent, also the more specific, it's easy to get through. The greatest patent in the world is to have a really broad patent, but it's very tough to get approved. If you make a patent really specific, this type of material, this type of material, this much of that, that's much easier getting it through. So, all right, ladies, this is in New York. I want you to feel confident getting a seat at the table. And as I said to you before, what you have to do here is you have to go into any type of meeting being confident. Don't let anybody around the table, other men, other women, intimidate you. Be confident in what you're bringing to the table. And I can't stress this enough, be prepared. Don't go in and wing it. Go in prepared, look professional. And what happens also, if you're going to be going into the world of a startup, you have to have a pitch deck. Because you're always going to be having this deck that you're going to try to sell to people looking to invest. What is a pitch deck? Pitch deck is basically just a computer program that you put together about 12 to 15 slides. You put together 12 to 15 slides, you've addressed the current need, you've addressed current players or competitors in the market, you discuss your product, you discuss the differentiation, we're going to talk about that in a second, of your product and where you see it going. It's 12 to 15 slides. That's what we call a pitch deck. And you have to have that if you're really trying to raise money or get people interested. Again, women don't know how to market themselves. You have to understand how to do this. And I showed this last night. This was really wonderful for me because my ex-spouse, who I have a good relationship with, is Japanese, and she saw this picture, and it was so cute. She said to me, she said, "Oh my God, Annie," she said, "you look like a rich, powerful woman in this picture." So, oh, okay. So this is my vibe. What I'm trying to do is I love trying to be an entrepreneurial, strong woman. And I realize everyone has their own comfort level. But if you're looking to get into the world of being an entrepreneur, developing products, you have to have confidence. So where do I start? Let me tell you about this lady. This lady is a wonderful, wonderful plastic surgeon. She went to medical school in Ireland, and she's practicing in Indiana right now. And she created their entire transgender medicine program along with the surgery. And she's just an incredible surgeon. She does all the gender affirmation surgery. She visited me 2 summers ago, and she visited me at Cape Cod in the end of June. At that point, she's in a department with 15 plastic surgeons. She and another woman who's part-time, they're the only 2 women. The side is full-time. At that point, all the other men in the department had more than 120 consultations. She and the other woman each had 14. So she came, and she really loves to operate, and she's fabulous. How can I do this? So I had to give her a crash course in Annie's axioms, okay? And Annie's axioms are really how you create yourself. This is, it looks like a leprechaun, right? This is in Chicago and St. Patty's Day. This is Annie's axioms. The first thing that you do is you have to get differentiation. So if you're developing or you're working in the practice and you got a technique that you're doing it, she does a drain-free top surgery for double mastectomies. That's amazing. I said, Sive, first thing I said to her, I said, do you have a laser? Are you using a laser? So she said, well, no. I said, well, wait a second. If you have a laser somewhere, all of a sudden you have precision built into the marketing angle. Everything is laser verified, okay? So she went back, immediately got a laser, okay? Because now she can make this marketing thing that everything is precision-based. It's laser verified. I said, secondly, I said, you've got to give a name specifically to the technique that you're doing. No one else is doing this drain-free procedure. It's an amazing technique. She's published it, but you can't call it a double mastectomy. You have to give it a name. I don't care what the name is. You have to give it a name. So she came up with the term masculoplasty, okay? So she went back. Now she's doing a masculoplasty. Now it says laser verified. Now she's doing interviews. She's doing radio shows, TV shows, writing some articles. The back half of the year, she made more money and did more cases than anybody in Indiana in the plastic surgery department. She now gets more than 200 consultations a month. And the reason on the entry form is, I'm here for a consult for a masculoplasty. Okay? You have to understand how strong it is if you're on the marketing side of something, you want to promote yourself in your business, getting differentiation. And the easiest way to get differentiation is giving it a different name. I'll give you an example with the sequence file. With the sequence file design, I want to have a non-cutting tip. I really strongly believe in a non-cutting tip in endodontics. If you have a cutting tip, you end up transporting things, you create elliptical tears if you go long. So I wanted to have a non-cutting tip. So when it came back from the Swiss manufacturer, if I said I had a non-cutting tip, it's just another non-cutting tip. I thought it was fabulous, so I gave it a different name. You know what the name I gave it was? It's a precision tip. Then I found myself going to dental meetings. People would come up to me, Dr. Koch, what? I said, yeah. I said, another sequence file. I said, yeah, I know it. They said, you know, it's got a precision tip, right? So I said, yeah, it does precisely what you want it to do, yes. But what it does, that gave me differentiation to talk about my story, to talk about my file. With Dr. Gallagher, having a masculoplasty, it gave her differentiation from the horde of other surgeons who don't do techniques as good as she does. It's a tough world out there. There's a lot of competition. You have to find ways to get separation. So for me, Annie's axioms are the following. You've got to give a name to your technique, okay, whatever that technique be. Secondly, name it, protect it. What do I mean by protecting it? Trademark it and a provisional patent. Especially trademark, a little TM mark, that's easy, just a couple $100. You can file that on the internet. Now that's protected. Okay? You can reserve your domain online, all that stuff, but I'm more interested in you naming it, protect it. Then promote it. Because now what you're promoting is you're promoting a differentiated product or technique. Okay? So now, now there's this association with you as a clinician with this technique that you've given a name. And then finally, own it. So what happens with that is that's the patent process. If you go in and you got the patent process, that gives you a lot of authority to speak to companies. The biggest problem is that people think that you have to be at home and make an entire prototype. There are people who make prototypes for you. You have to have the concept. I have been in grinding offices where people have grinded a prototype for a rotary file that literally was worth tens and tens of millions of dollars, and the grinder thought they ripped me off because they charged me $75. Okay? So the point here is that you're the person with the expertise. You're the person with the knowledge. When you go into the world of product development and things like that, or even your office, Annie's axioms work. Name it, protect it, promote it, and own it. Okay? Startup tips. Don't start by trying to raise money. Okay? That's the biggest mistake when people are doing startups. They think we first have to raise, $50,000 or $20,000. No, that's not the way to concentrate. Concentrate on what you have in your product. How much differentiation do you have? What do you have that's going to be basically an advantage? It's not just the advantage, it's differentiation. I'm assuming that you're creating a product, it's going to be a better technique, or it's going to be a better widget. That's kind of given in the conversation. But what you have to understand is how can you differentiate it? I can't get anybody into an endodontic specialty program. I've probably written through the years 3 or 4 recommendations, and they can never seem to get in. I'm a killer at business schools and the University of Pennsylvania College, right? I don't care whether it's Amos Tuck, Harvard, Stanford. I know how to get people into business schools and Penn at the college. But when I write a recommendation, and I won't write a recommendation unless I can write a good recommendation. So if I don't feel that way about a student, I will say to them, I'm sorry, but I really don't feel comfortable writing a recommendation. I'm not going to write a half-ass recommendation. But when I'm writing a recommendation, especially to undergraduate college, the biggest thing that I'm looking for, Penn this year had 46,000 applications. I have to get differentiation from my applicant. What is different about this applicant? Everybody's a class president. Everybody's got great board scores. Everybody was, all this, all that. But how can I get differentiation to make that interviewer or that reviewer of the applications stop and take notice? It's all about differentiation, okay? And it's the same thing in the product world. You're coming in, you get a lot of things, especially as a woman now coming forward. There's a part of a story there that's going to get some acknowledgement. But what you have to do is you still have to further your technique or your product. Go where there's an opportunity. One thing I learned through the years, I had a couple of big companies try to get involved with me with lawsuits. I had created a patent where I had a term that was copied by a major dental company. They knew my patent, but they did it kind of thinking to draw me into a lawsuit. I can't win that. I'm not even going to be involved, so go ahead, I don't care. And if somebody to me comes in and infringes on a patent and they're in a different country, that's really tough to protect. So instead of me trying to get involved in litigation, my thing is, can we talk about a licensing fee? Okay? So don't just immediately blow up. Take a look at some different angles. So when you have to look at this, you have to look at this 360 degrees. So what you have to look at is like, wait a second, where is this going to go? What's the market for my technique? What's the market for my product? And can I have some kind of corollary help in this? That's being smart. Get your name out there. Man, I can't emphasize this enough. Dr. Gallagher's got the whole package. She's brilliant. She's a great surgeon. She's an attractive young individual. She's funny. Saib, how come you're not all over the world? Well, there's 14 other people in the department. That doesn't matter. You got to do this yourself. And there's a way. All of a sudden, you contact this group, this person. All of a sudden, you write an article, or you speak there. Then you speak at another one. All of a sudden, somebody invites you. Now you've gone from 1 to 3. Then all of a sudden, now you got 3 other people who want you to come. Before you know it, it snowballs. That's how you build momentum. But what you have to do is that the way you're going to be able to build momentum with your practice, your technique, or your product is by making it differentiated. What are you providing in your practice or with your technique or your product that's different? What is it that you're providing that is better than the competition? Investors want to hear your story and how you are going to change the world. I showed you a picture before of Nick. And Nick's a young guy. And Nick's a talented, smart guy. And he's fun. And he's a gorgeous guy and all that stuff. So when I was going around in New York City, when I would go into some of these offices with investors and people interested in a startup, if I went in by myself and I told my story, the following would happen. Oh my gosh, that's an amazingly interesting story. You have had an amazing career. That's been incredible, Annie. Have a cookie on the way out, okay? If Nick went in, oh my God, you know, that's a great background, Wharton, London Business School. You're at the beginning of your career. You're gonna have a great career, Nick. You look great. Have a cookie on the way out. But when Nick and I came in together, there was enough of a dichotomy. It's like, uh-oh, wait a second here. This is a WTF moment. What's going on here? Tell us about it. And what we found out was that what we were talking about, they couldn't care less. What they were interested in most was the dynamic between Nick and myself, right? You know, the fact that we were talking about oral hygiene products for animals and talking about making dental products more like a cosmetic, that was great. But the thing that they were most interested in was the dynamic that Nick and I had as a young guy and an older woman who used to be a quarterback. That's what caught their interest. So that's how you have to realize sometimes they don't want to necessarily know, you know, what your product is. They want to hear your story. How are you going to make a difference? Like for my endodontic program, when I selected people, and I used the old Japanese concept of wa, harmony. I would accept one person, the person I had to have. Second person I would accept was a person who could work with number one. Third person I would accept would be the person who could work with the first two. And I would take 4 a year. The fourth person was the person I could work with the other 3. The dental school is part of the med school, and all the med people used to ask me, how did I get residency? He said, my God, your residents, like they're bonded at the waist, because I put an effort into who I was basically selecting. And what I wanted to do, I didn't want to have a person come to my program who had done a lot of root canals. I couldn't care less. I'm going to show you how to do a root canal. I want a person who's got an engine and has a desire, because I'm not interested in having a person create an individual who can do premolar or molar endo. I want to create a person who's going to make a difference. Who's going to make a difference in the specialty, is going to make a difference in the way patients were trained. So for me, this was all about not just that simple things with their hands, but what are they going to do? Where are they going to go? The same thing with startups. It's not about your little widget or your idea. It's about what you bring to the table. Okay? Confidence and passion. I can't tell you how important. All of us want to be cool to a certain extent. And we don't want to be slobbering down the sides of our chin that we're so excited to get into this program or get into that school or have them, you know, give us X amount of money for a startup. So we try to be a little bit cool. Wait a second. That only works to a certain point. You have to, I can tell you from being on the other side of the table, confidence and passion goes an incredibly long way. And this is where women really need to step up. I had a person apply to my program in endodontics, and a person came from a school in the Midwest, came in and shows me a portfolio of 20 root canals done. They were beautiful. I said to him, I don't know who did these root canals, okay? I don't know whether your brother, the endodontist, did them, or your friend, or your father. This kind of means nothing to me, because I don't know who did these cases. And he was kind of like crestfallen. But I said, what really impresses me is that you made the effort to put this together. That your desire to come to this program is so great that you made an effort to put this together. And then maybe there was a chance. Maybe you could bullshit me. That wouldn't hurt, right? But I said, what impresses me is your desire. I ended up accepting that kid. Great endodontist out in Missouri, okay? Because I understood what he had, the desire, the passion. So what I want all of you, male, female, general dentist, specialist, whatever you want you to do, I want you to do it with confidence and with passion. And if you're going into the world of product development, don't forget Annie's axioms. Name it, protect it, promote it, own it. And having said that to you in this whole time period, the only thing I can say at the end is, here's to you. All right, thank you.